You guys want to see a movie that makes you feel like you're going crazy? Mother stars Jennifer Lawrence as a young woman who's going through some relationship troubles, especially when some uninvited guests are welcomed into her home. Explaining anything other than that would, one, be difficult, and two, probably would be spoilerific. The first word that comes to mind when I was watching this movie was allegory. You feel as if this movie is an allegory to something else, but you can't quite grasp what that something else is. If you look online, you'll find a good answer to that, especially spoken by Jennifer Lawrence herself. And suddenly when you read that, everything suddenly makes sense. But if you watch the movie as is, your own feelings on what's actually happening or not, this movie makes you feel as if you're going crazy, because the character played by Jennifer Lawrence is going crazy. You don't know what this means, you don't know why this is happening, and even after watching the movie, you can't stop thinking about the different things in the film, the little things that just weren't answered for you. That's a good thing, because it makes you think about the movie after it's done, which is always pretty cool when a movie can do that. But that's just because the whole thing's an allegory for something else. I would tell you, but I don't want to spoil it any other way or make you see the film differently. See it for yourself before you look up any allegories. But if you know those allegories, whatever. First up, we're going to look at the people category. Acting-wise, there's some really extremely good acting going on in Mother, especially by Jennifer Lawrence. Everybody else in the film is mysterious. It works as a psychological thriller because that's sort of what it is, but the film follows Jennifer Lawrence's character as close as humanly possible so that when she starts freaking out and when she starts wondering about things and when things are a mystery for her, all those things are affecting you exactly the same. And she's really carrying the movie when it comes down to her performance. So 2 out of 2 possible stars for act. Characters. When it comes down to characters, I don't think as a whole the characters were really anything spectacular or memorable, but what they represent in that allegory is interesting, and it gives you new perspective on the importance of these characters as a whole. So actually, out of the characters alone and their importance to adding to the plot, I will both give those 2 out of 2 possible stars. Casting wise, I think the movie does a good job at telling you it doesn't really matter who these people are casting wise. I won't really explain why. It is actually a plot point rather somewhere in the movie. Anybody could have played these roles. That's not a bad thing, but at the same time I have to rate it as I do, 1 out of 2 possible stars. Chemistry. Normally when I think of chemistry, I think of how everybody interacts with each other and if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And the same can be said here. But at the same time, there's a whole new perspective on chemistry when you're watching Mother, because it's pretty much the chemistry of how Jennifer Lawrence acts within her own psychotic feelings towards things. It's her chemistry with the world around her that makes the chemistry work so well with the film. But other than that, yes, the actors do all work very well together, but I just wanted to point that out. 2 out of 2 possible stars for chemistry. Writing category. As far as the dialogue's considered, other than a few things here and a few things there's nothing I can really pick out when it comes to dialogue that stood out. For that, I'll just say 1 out of 2 possible stars. The story itself is very confusing. Yes, it's hard to distinguish what's going on, but once you look up what inspired the film, why no characters seem to have any names, it's a good story. So story gets 2 out of 2 possible stars. Original. You tell me if you've ever seen a movie like this, because I have never seen a movie like this. 2 out of 2 possible stars for originality. Interesting. I would say that it was definitely interesting. I'm always interested to see a Jennifer Lawrence film because she has the ability to really perform well in her films. But other than that, when I was watching it, I couldn't take my eyes off of what was happening. So as far as interesting goes, absolutely 2 out of 2 possible stars. BTS, behind the scenes category. Visuals. Right from the get-go, you know that this film has Nothing wrong with the visuals. It doesn't always focus on visuals throughout the film, but you know if it needs to have great visuals, it'll just have them. 2 out of 2 possible stars for that. Directing, Darren Aronofsky. You've seen him in a ton of other films. The latest film I think I've seen from his was probably Noah. He's got a very interesting visual way of dealing with things, but other than his visual style and his visual way of doing storytelling, the actual way he was able to put together this film to sort of match his vision on how to tell the story was probably a very hard task to do, and I think he did a great job. 2 out of 2 possible stars. Editing, I can't really say there was anything specific that stuck out as far as editing goes. A lot of the visuals were great, and a lot of the camera work and the storytelling was great for the director and everything, but editing specifically, I can't really say that was anything more than typical for me, so 1 out of 2 possible stars. Advertisement. I will say this felt as advertised. The advertisements were weird and confusing, and the movie was weird and confusing. 2 out of 2 possible stars. Music, or rather the lack of music. There doesn't seem to be any kind of score or songs going on. It was all very broad. But that's just to enhance what it sounds like during certain scenes that needs great sound. It does. It sounds really good when it needs to. So 2 out of 2 possible stars there. Narrative arc score. Introduction was pretty good. You get a good handle on who Jennifer Lawrence's character is. You get a good handle on who Javier Bardem, or however you say his name, his character, what he's doing there. And you kind of just get a whole feel of their importance to the story before anything actually happens. The inciting incident isn't as clear. It seems to be when the uninvited guests start coming over, but nothing really feels like you can't really stop it from happening. You can't cancel anything. You can't take a step back. That never really happens until further down the line in the film. So as far as inciting incident goes, 1 out of 2 possible stars. Obstacles. Jennifer Lawrence is an obstacle throughout this film. And I don't mean she's hard to watch. I'm saying everything she deals with is an obstacle for her. And because you get so sucked into who her character is, they're obstacles for you as well. 2 out of 2 possible stars. Climax. Does everything come up to a culmination and a sum of everything else? Oh yeah, I'm still... It's hard to even put into words what happens in the climax. That makes it a climax. 2 out of 2 possible stars. Falling action. Does everything calm down and return to a new norm for all the characters? For that, I say yes and no. I do believe it calms down, but for the most part, there is no new norm for everybody. Other than that, I'll say falling action gets 1 out of 2 possible stars. Entertainment. How entertained was I while watching the film? Well, rewatchability, would I watch it again? I'm afraid to see it again, but I would definitely watch it again because there's just things I feel like I missed the first time around, and I have to watch it again in order to see other missed things, so I have to say 2 out of 2 possible stars for that. Was it any fun while watching? Take it this way, there wasn't any point in the film where I wasn't having any fun while watching. I was just blown apart by everything that was happening, and I was feeling like I was crazy, but in a good way. So as far as that goes, 2 out of 2 possible stars. Would I consider buying this? No, I don't think I'd really care to buy it, even if it was cheap. I don't really care to own it in general, so 0 out of 2 possible stars. Do I have an impulse to talk about it? For that, I'll say yes. There's just too much going on in this movie that I feel like I need to have a discussion with somebody to help me understand it better. So whenever that happens, I have to say 2 out of 2 possible stars. Does it suck the audience in? I don't know when it doesn't. Like I said earlier, the first word that comes to mind is allegory. The first feeling you get is, I probably shouldn't blink while watching it because I'm going to miss something big. So 2 out of 2 possible stars for sucking you in. Specialty category. Before I saw this film, I basically thought that even though it looked weird and confusing, it definitely seemed like a horror film for whatever reason. It's just, it got me that way. Now, when I was watching, I think there were things in the film that I definitely consider were horror genre related, but I don't consider the movie scary. Just weird and confusing and a psychological in all the right ways. So as far as horror goes, I'm gonna give it 5 out of 10 possible stars because it had some genre related things. You also get the feeling that it's a psychological thriller, and boy is it ever. It's one of the few psychological thrillers that really gets your mind boggled. So as far as that goes, 10 out of 10 possible stars. I wanted to know something about the title, specifically Mother. What does that refer to? I won't spoil you, but the title Mother refers to more than one thing at the same time. So 10 out of 10 possible stars for that. Next, Jennifer Lawrence. I've seen her in a ton of movies. What do I think of her performance here? Well, if anybody brought up Jennifer Lawrence, I'd bring up 3 movies: The Hunger Games as a whole, Silver Linings Playbook, and Mother. Most definitely. I have seen her in other things. Few things really impressed me to the point where I would like to have a discussion about it, and this is one of those things. 10 out of 10 possible stars. Finally, is it halfway decent? Some people might argue with this, but I do believe that it is halfway decent. Darren Aronofsky had this vision in mind to blow people's minds, to confuse them, to do with them whatever he pleases, and that is what he does. 10 out of 10 possible stars there. Now, if we add all that together, we get 87 out of 100 possible stars. 87%, which was a lot higher than I really anticipated it being. Other than that, guys, follow me on Twitter and Tract.tv at username IAMDWG. That's IMDWG, and on YouTube, subscribe to me. Hit that like button and hit that little bell to be notified when I come out with my next movie review. Peace out.